So our discussion this morning is surrounding the issues of firearms and rights of people who have a criminal history and background. And, the real problem here, people, is that what's happened is we have been molded into this concept that we should just take the government's version of things and swallow it hook, line, and sinker and not actually ever question the rationale behind it. And, of course, my problem with that is that I think that is detrimental to the principles of liberty, because we kind of assume, well, if you've been convicted of a crime, I guess you were guilty. Well, I'm here to tell you that the vast majority of people who are convicted of a crime don't actually ever get a jury trial because they can't afford one. And what happens is they sign a plea bargain. And plea bargains are basically, if you accept this kind of prison sentence, we won't prosecute you any further. And because they can't afford to actually fight back and win a case, or even attempt to win a case, they end up, with a conviction. And a lot of these convictions are for things that, are what we would call consensual crime, like, getting caught with a bag of weed or whatever the case may be. Listen, if you want to kill yourself with smoking crack or methamphetamine, get to it. Hurry it up. Do us a favor and lean out the gene pool. But catching a kid with a bag of weed and then making him a felon for life and forever barring him from owning a gun is wrong. It's wrong ethically, morally, and I mean, no one can justify that. If you've gone 5, 10, 20 years and you've never had another problem in your life, it's one thing if you're a serial criminal, right? It's one thing if you've been convicted of rape and assault and robbery and those kinds of things. That's different. But, the vast majority of felons are not convicted of serial crime. They're convicted of a single crime in their lives. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. It's Dean in Viola.
Hey, Dean.
I agree with you on that issue of the felony thing. It's kind of ridiculous. They've upgraded so many crimes in probably the last 30 to 40 years from really what were just like misdemeanors to felonies.
Everything's a felony now.
Right. 1973, I got busted with a little weed. And you know what it was? It was like a traffic ticket. In fact, me and the cops joked about it. And I said, look, I only live so far from here. Will you allow me to go home and get some money? I'll come back and pay the fine.
Yeah.
Said, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Well, see,
I mean, that's how lenient it was back then.
The real issue is this. It's another form of gun control. And that's what most people don't want to think. They don't think past the end of their nose. And what you have to realize is that the principles of felony convictions in this country is being instituted for a very clear and specific reason. It is a form of gun and people control. Because once a person is a felon, you've effectively pulled them out of society forever. I'm going to give you an example. I am a felon. I have a felony in my history. Right. When I worked in the telecommunications industry, I had a very, very good job. I did an excellent job. When my employer, I won awards for my performance and my quality of work year after year after year after year. For the 7 years I was with Verizon, I won their number one guy award every year. They sent me all over the world, right, as a thank you.
Great.
Guess what?
Right.
I'll never get another job with a Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 company, because a felony effectively precludes me from ever working for a large corporation again. They won't touch you with a 10-foot pole. Not because you're not capable, because they don't even want to take the risk. And, I get it. If you were convicted of embezzlement, maybe they don't want you to be the chief financial officer or working in the accounting office. I understand that, okay? But if you've got a felony for a possession of a bag of weed, I don't understand why you can't be a good manager, right? Or why you can't be a good salesman, or why you can't be a good technical engineer. I don't think the two have any correlation. If and unfortunately, what's happened is, like everything else in our society, we've got this kind of brainwashing thing that's been going on in our society for decades upon decades upon decades, and it's so. You're taught from the earliest days that once you're a criminal, you're always a criminal. And that's not right. I mean, how many of us, all of you who are listening right now, think back to something that you've done in your life that you may not necessarily have been caught for, but could have ended up with you going to prison. Does that make you a better person than me? I don't think so.
Not at all.
And does that make you more safe for the community? I don't think so. Does that make me less safe for the community? I don't think so.
I have a question for our caller. Do you think that our society believes in rehabilitation of criminals?
I think it's an ideology that's been thrown out there that works about as well as making airplanes out of lead.
Well, that's a paper. It's a paper argument, right? Because
right, exactly.
In other words, we all mouth it, but nobody really believes it. Because if you truly believed in the concept of rehabilitation, then you would say that after someone has served his time, he's paid his debt to society, right? I mean, that phrase, debt to society, has no meaning if forever you're a felon.
But if you do believe, and if society believes in the theory or the concept of rehabilitation, then what should follow rehabilitation should be restoration of civil rights.
Absolutely. But, but here's the point. And that's exactly my point. But go to the average person on the street and ask them if they agree with that, and they'll immediately say no.
Yeah,
they'll immediately say no. Not because they've actually given it any thought, just because their knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, he could commit another crime. Well, okay, but so could you, and you're not a felon. So what difference does that make? I mean, are you going to hold me accountable for pre-crime for the remainder? I mean, honestly, let's talk about it. Let's have a national discussion about it. Because, and that's part of this whole problem with this gun rights issue. They don't want to have a national discussion about everybody walking around. 40% of America is stunned into acquiescence and stupidity by brainwashing themselves with Prozac and whatever other these antidepressant drugs are out there. Let me tell you something. Those are chemically induced psychosis. And almost everybody who has committed one of these massacres has been on some sort of massive antidepressant that has skewed their thinking because it rewires the way the brain thinks. And if we think that psychology and psychologists and psychiatry has any level of credibility, all we got to do is look back and say 40 years ago we were actually still doing these things called lobotomies. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, I have about the psychiatric profession has about as much credibility in my book as a guy who's standing around there with a bone through his nose shaking a rattle.
Same here, man. Totally.
Did I say that out loud?
Yes, and
I did,
and I applaud you for it.
I actually think I said that out loud to literally hundreds of thousands of people. In fact. But, listen, I'm not saying psychologists and psychiatrists are all quacks, but I am saying that, these same people the same people who told us that butter wasn't good for us and margarine was, and now we find out it's one molecule away from plastic, are now telling us that butter is good and margarine's not, right? I mean, here's my point. We don't know what we don't know. And sitting there and trying to tell us that, the mentality of someone who's committed a crime once when they're 22 years old should follow them through the rest of their lives based on this blanket determination is just an absurdity. I can tell you right now that there are many, many, and I'm going to tell you, before I had my felony, and people ask, well, whatever did happen. Someday I'll tell the story. But, mine wasn't really a crime of intent. Mine was a crime of setup, right? And all you got to do is know exactly how federal and government agencies work to know how that operates. They go get somebody, and then they turn around and say to that somebody, listen, if you go get us 3 more people, instead of giving you 10 years, we're going to give you 3. And that guy anxiously runs out there and sets up 3 other people he knows, and then those 3 people are convinced to set up 3 more people each of them know. Now we got 9. Then that 9 is turned into 27, and then that's... You get the idea.
That's like that shampoo commercial.
And that's why at one time...
I'm old enough to remember that.
Horrible. Well, that's why at one time entrapment was such a horrible offense. on behalf of like law enforcement or any kind of an agency.
Well,
because
the federal rules on entrapment are this. Here's the federal rules on entrapment. There is no such thing.
Well, yeah, but at one time there was.
Well, look, you don't have to be a legal scholar to know that entrapment exists. I'm just going to tell you, here's the deal. And here's the way federal agencies and law enforcement in particular look at this. And so do states, by the way. There is no such thing as entrapment, because if you had, and no one goes under the concept that you had to have the intention of breaking the law anymore. And here's the problem with it. The federal government prosecutes people all day long for crimes that they had no intention of actually committing. The problem is that you don't have the wherewithal to fight back, because it's like an ant trying to beat up an elephant. It just is not possible. It's not the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's the 8,000-pound gorilla in the room. They beat you to death with attrition, financial attrition, because the minute you are charged with a federal felony, go ask any attorney, and I know plenty of them. The first words out of their mouth is, before we even start looking at this, I need $50,000. $50,000. And, oh, by the way, did you want to fight it, or was that for the plea? Because the minute you say I want to fight it, it's like, well, now it's not 50. Now we're talking 150. And you think I'm kidding, and I'm telling you right now I'm not. Here's the problem. The federal government works under the principle of attrition, financial attrition. And they know that they can basically manipulate you into signing a plea agreement. I'm going to tell you something. That 96% of all the convictions in the federal government are done by plea agreements. There almost are no jury trials. And out of the jury trials that actually occur, the vast majority of those are not actually won by the majority of those are not actually won by the government. So when you think about the issues surrounding how they manipulate the legal system to their advantage, most people plea out because they can't afford, or they're afraid, or they threaten you with additional charges that they weren't going to hit you with now, and it's a bunch of trumped up nonsense. But all they got to do is find you guilty of one, and they own you. Hey, listen, we're going to have to take a break because this is capitalistic radio. When we come back, we will take more calls on these topics, and hopefully some of you will have some wise things to say. We'll be right back.
The further we reach out, the closer we all become. Hey, it's Nate Cooper here with the Ozark's Best News Talk 107.1 The Point. I invite you to join us Sunday mornings. The program is a combination of local and national known speakers. So I encourage you to do two things. Listen in on Sunday mornings from 8 until noon and find out how you can become a sponsor of one of the programs. Just call our offices at 255-0427. Beyond the Point, Sundays on the Ozark's Best News Talk 107.1.
Another year older, another birthday blood. Not when you're listening to the Birthday Club here on 107.1 The Point each morning during the morning show. Proudly presented by Ryan's Family Restaurant. Call in your loved ones, your mom, dad, grandma, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, nieces, whoever, for their chance to be the winner of a great buffet and drink from Ryan's Family Restaurant. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you from 107.1 The Point and Ryan's Family Restaurant.
Man, I love the sound of that theme music. I know it's not Merle Haggard, but I like it. And this is my show. So I get to play it. Here's the problem we have, people. And it's relatively simple. Our government is an oppressor at this point and is not interested in justice. Our government is interested in furthering its own agenda. And that's made up of a whole microcosm of individuals who all have their own agenda. And their own agenda requires, because humans are naturally evil, monstrous little thugs, everyone has this idea that they want power. I mean, we are addicted to power like a heroin addict is addicted to the needle. It's human nature. And so what ends up happening is individuals who work in agencies want power, and the only way that they can get that power is by proving how good they are. And in order to prove how good they are, they have to find people who will break their rules, regulations, and laws. And in the firearms realm, it's relatively easy to do. One, it's a demonized concept to begin with. Two, you can use public safety as the argument and the threat and the argument of gun violence, right? So we'll go ahead and say it. So gun violence is the threat that they use, and gun violence has the public connotation of the word rape, right? As soon as you hear that word, you immediately have come to mind with this kid with his pants sagging down around his skinny little rear end, who's carrying a Glock in his pants, and he's selling dope on the corner. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But every other reference to guns nowadays is gun crime
and
gun violence, gun crime, and gun violence, because in people's minds,
it's called propaganda.
They want those words to be forever linked together,
right?
So that people think that everything that has to do with guns
automatically involves
crimes or violence,
Of
and
course.
that's it.
Of course.
Okay. And what's happening is, for people in urban areas who have never spent the afternoon with a couple of friends and a .22 rifle and a brick of ammo knocking cans off a fence, okay, to them that sticks because they hear it so often. It's the constant repetition: gun crime, gun violence, gun crime, gun violence.
Right, and it's embedded into our national discussion, right? So what happens is everybody begins to associate those two. Listen, Goebbels had nothing on these guys. Go ahead, caller.
Well, I just want to concur with your thinking here, and it made me think of a case I know where a fellow was messing around with computers and apparently listened in on someone's Wi-Fi, and he didn't steal their bank account or anything, but he did invade their privacy. Anyway, for that computer crime, he was sentenced to years in prison, and of course he lost his gun rights, and his family, his guns had to be taken out of his house.
The NSA and the FBI do that to us every day.
And
they carry guns.
But there's no logic between doing a computer crime and losing your gun rights.
Exactly.
I mean,
well, I'm going to take it one step further, because I've seen this in action. The way that the law is written, if you commit a crime, let's say a drug crime, okay? So, and specifically a drug crime. A kid gets caught selling crack, okay, or methamphetamine.
Okay.
He's going to get 10 years, let's say. Let's just say that's the punishment.
Right.
If you take that kid and you also charge him with possession of a firearm, under federal regulations, the mandatory minimum jumps to 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And so here's what happens. And clarify for me if you can find some logic in this. You got a kid who's standing on the street corner selling dope, right?
Right.
He's got a Glock stuck in his pants. His waist of his pants is down around below his ass.
Okay.
Have I drawn the right mental picture here?
Yeah, I got it.
Plumbers.
And he's got a Glock stuck in his pants, and because he wants to feel like he's a bad guy, and he's got tattoos all over and a spider web stuck on his face, right, permanently by ink.
Okay.
And so here he is, he's selling his dope, and he gets picked up by the cops, and he's got a gun and a bag of crack, right?
Right.
Okay, so he's going to get 25 years. Now they go around the corner, and there's another kid on another street corner, because, of course, they all have their own little turf. And he picks up another kid selling crack. And they issue search warrants for both homes to see if there's more drugs at home. They go into the home, and in the home of the kid who got caught with just the crack in his pocket, they find that in a closet, in a shoebox, is a pistol. Now, he lives with his grandmother.
Yeah.
And it's her gun, which was left to her by a husband who died in 1973.
All right, very good.
And guess what? They charge him with possession of a firearm in the commission of a crime. And they both get the same 25 years.
Yeah,
now, if you can give me the example of how one guy who's standing there on the street corner with a pistol, just waiting to turn it sideways and threaten somebody with it or shoot at one of his enemies. If you can show me that these two guys are guilty of the same offense, I'll give you $1,000 cash.
Yeah, well,
because one has intent and the other doesn't. And here's my point. The government no longer looks at intent. They look at opportunity, and that's the problem.
Yeah, they go way overboard in this whole thing, and any sense of logical cause and result is just thrown aside.
Government and logic are two words that you may not use in the same sentence. That is an oxymoron. They are diametrically opposed.
I confess.
It's like congressional intelligence.
That's right. There you go. Okay. Well,
baby grand pianos and congressional intelligence.
But I just think this equating of any crime at all with the threat of gun violence is just nonsensical. I mean, someone ought to be proven to have used a gun or something, have a gun in commission of a crime before you take away all the guns from their family and stuff. I don't know.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I am saying that the way that the federal government defines gun violence or crime, a crime of violence. Let's just actually, and I'll pull this up for you, and I'll give you their actual definition of it, because I actually fought this in court, by the way, and I won. The court found me not guilty of a violent crime.
Well, good.
Okay, so here's, I got to find it now, 923C. Okay, no, I'll find it for you. So, anyway, the point is this. When you are convicted of a crime of violence, and that crime of violence doesn't necessarily have to have actual violence in it. It only has to have the perception that crime could, or a violent crime could be committed by that person.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what it is. The firearm is brandished. Brandished. That means shown.
Yeah.
Okay? And that is a violent crime.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
now, it also qualifies as a violent crime if the person if the firearm is possessed by a person convicted of a violation of a subsection. So, here's my point. You don't actually have to commit a violent act anymore in order to be construed as being a violent crime. By the way, drug trafficking they consider a violent crime. Yeah. Did you know that the difference between burglary and if you are convicted of burglary, it's an automatic violent crime, because the premise is that you went into someone's home, and while theoretically they were home or not, but the possibility existed that the homeowner may find you there, and then violence would ensue.
Yeah, but that's the definition of burglary, is breaking and entering into the dwelling place of another with the intent to commit a felony therein.
Okay, but it's not a violent crime.
Well, breaking.
I mean, it's only a violent crime if violence ensues during the course of the break-in and entering. And by the way,
theoretically,
it's not theoretical; it's factual. You either, if the guy found you and you two got into a tussle, now it's violent.
Right.
But not until.
In which case, burglary is the correct charge, okay?
Versus burglary, but burglary.
Versus breaking and entering.
But burglary, okay. But burglary is always considered a violent crime.
Well,
it's statutory.
Burglary. Okay.
Burglary is statutorily a violent crime.
All right,
by the way, all bank robbery is a violent crime. Even if you just walked in and you wrote on the back of one of your personal checks, "I need all the money."
Yeah. But see, also you have to talk about common law states versus statutory states.
I'm just saying. I'm going to say it to you this way: in the federal system, bank robbery is a violent crime every time, 100%, no options. It's not questioned. And whether or not you just walked in with a note and said, "Please hand me all the money in the register," or whether you stuck a gun in the teller's nose, both are considered the same exact act. And I'm telling you that one is violent and the other isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
if I can back down a little bit from that higher level, one of the things I've noticed in some of these discussions of gun control, they want to take the gun rights away from someone who's charged with domestic violence. And that didn't have to be convicted.
But wait until you hear what the definition is for domestic violence.
Well, yeah, it could be.
You could have a yelling match in your living room with your wife, and suddenly it's domestic violence.
Yeah, if your neighbors heard you shouting or something and called the police, that could be, somehow considered as domestic violence.
It's not. It could be. It is. We've got a break coming up, folks. We'll be right back. If you want to stay on the line, you can. We'll be right back, folks. You're listening to America's Voice Now.
It's another way to narrow that.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. At a conservative summit near D.C., CPAC officials expected to announce the winner of its straw poll of possible presidential candidates. But one high-profile Republican opting out of that poll, Jeb Bush.
Bush said the party can broaden its base by opening its arms.
I'm here to tell you there is no us or them.
He said the party suffers from being considered anti-everything. Anti-immigrant, anti-woman, anti-gay.
Fox Radio's Steve Knight.
Life is getting harder for people who are born into disadvantage, said Bush, arguing that conservatism is the best path upward for people who don't have power or money. He said the new face of the Republican Party should be the face of every American.
We need to be the party of inclusion and acceptance.
And an American astronaut and 2 Russian cosmonauts are home safe back on Earth after 144 days on board the International Space Station. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Get a hold of Brian down at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. You can call him at 870-492-4030. Or you can find him on the web at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. Located a half-mile east of Walmart on Route 62 in Mountain Home. My friends over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery at 255-2253, number 2 Evans Arcade off the square in West Plains. Best damn bakery in 100 miles. You can reach Mary at 255-2253. My friend Bill Stone over at Stone Construction at 293-0116. Whether remodeling or doing new or custom construction or light commercial, Bill's the guy for you. 293-0116. West Plains Pawn and Gun, located on Route 160, just about a mile east of Walmart on the right-hand side. westplainspawn.com. You can also reach them by a telephone at 417-256-3000. Friends over at the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue, right off the square in West Plains. You can find them on the web at batterystation.com, and you can call them at 417-257-7799. Also, don't forget to stop by Pizza Hut for an outstanding lunch special between 11 and 2. Salad and pasta all together. You can also visit them on Tuesday evenings for family night. Kids eat free under 12. And Jason over at Wits End Classic Barbershop, the sponsor of our telephone line. Make sure that you see Wits End Classic Barbershop for your next shave and a haircut. Outstanding, fine young man, and a great patriot as well. He's on the square in West Plains.
The area's best selection of firearms, ammunition, and accessories can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry.
Online at westplainspawn.com.
Top of the line, new and used optics from Nikon, Leopold, Burris, Redfield, Zeiss, and Schmidt & Bender. Ask about their selection of binoculars, laser sights, and night vision goggles. With new arrivals every week, the area's best selection of firearms, ammunition, and accessories can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry, 1713 West U.S. Highway 160, or shop online at westplainspawn.com.
Weather is a service of News Talk 107.1 The Point. Contact Josh or Cody at 255-2548 for more information on making weather sponsorships part of your marketing plans.
From the Point Weather Center, as we head into the evening, a clear sky. It'll be clear to partly cloudy overnight, the low 52. Turns out cloudy tomorrow, maybe an afternoon shower, high 64. A good chance of showers tomorrow night into the day on Sunday, low tomorrow night 40, Sunday's high 46. I'm staff meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
At American Family Insurance, we believe in families. We also believe that every family is unique and deserves protection tailored to suit their needs. American Family Insurance agent Barb Middleton is ready to give a no-obligation personal insurance review for the confidence and security to secure your dreams at no cost to you. Call American Family Insurance today, 256-7155, or visit amfam.com for more information. When family is your number one priority, let agent Barb Middleton help you find the protection for everything that matters to you most.
Okay, I found that subsection I was trying to read to you guys, by the way. It's called 924C3. And here's how a crime of violence is defined. For purposes of this subsection, the term crime of violence, and they have it in quotes, means an offense that is a felony and has as an element the use, attempted use, or threatened use of physical force against the person or property of another, or that by its nature involves a substantial risk that physical force against the person or property of another may be used in the course of committing the offense. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the definition of pre-crime. Go ahead, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Morning, Mike. I'm expecting Tom Cruise to pop out any minute for the pre-crime. And I did want to comment that when you're talking about the federal government winning on plea bargains through attrition, it reminds me of Monsanto's lawsuits against farmers.
There you go. It's a perfect example.
700 of them simply by having more money and more lawyers.
Sure.
Economic tyranny.
Right. And you know, your lawyer is a small town guy. You know, he's wearing a rumpled suit because that's all he can afford. His jacket is from Kmart, and it might be a blue blazer, but it's made of synthetic. And their lawyer shows up, and he's wearing silk, and he's got enough clothing on him to afford a small Mercedes-Benz. And, you know, the simple truth is he's got 19 acolytes behind him, and they're going to sit there and just pummel your guy into a grease spot on the ground.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
or they bury you in paperwork, which is another favorite tactic. Go ahead, Mike.
Definitely. Hey, I did want to mention for any of the listeners that are in the Willow Springs area,
yep,
or willing to drive there, the weather's wonderful, and a lot of people are thinking about gardening.
Yep.
The OSLU class in Willow Springs today, from 1 to 3,
right,
is on gardening.
Gardening,
and we'll be talking about raised bed gardens, showing people how to make them, save an awful lot of labor.
Now, this is in the Ferguson building in Willow Springs. But by the way, folks, because I know people are confused about it, the Ferguson building, when you get into Willow Springs and you hit that one main intersection there where it's a four-way stop, and there's probably only one of them, the Ferguson building is that tall, thin building that's got brick. It's made out of brick. It's got a bunch of painting on the side of the building, and is it in the first or second story, Mike?
You know, we never know until we get there, but I'll be standing there to direct people.
Okay.
Right area.
And for those of you who haven't attended an OSLU class, these are really informative. Mike brings in, people who are experts or subject matter experts on all different kinds of things. And today it's gardening. And
today the subject matter expert is my wife. I call her the garden guru or garden goddess.
And she really is a subject matter expert on this. So if you are, interested in planting a garden this year, there is the perfect way for you to get your feet wet and to learn how to turn your black thumb into green.
That's right. If anyone wants information on this, we'll be leaving around 11 o'clock, but they can call before then, 417-264-2435.
264
2435.
2435. 264-2435. And that's up until about 11 o'clock. The class actually begins at 1, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and what's the length of time that it runs, Mike, normally?
2 hours.
Okay.
And it's always free.
There you go. No charge at all, folks. And if you can drop $5 or $10 into a hat when you get there to help Mike and Deb defray some of their costs, they do all of this stuff completely voluntary. And, there's a lot of us out here doing stuff like this. Myself, Mike, and many, many others who, we put our time and our effort and our energies into making sure that you guys are informed, educated, and motivated and activated. And really, it's important that you have an opportunity to, or that you accept the responsibility to try to help out with a situation like this. Mike and Deb do all this at their own cost and expense.
The Ferguson building also, that's a good example of a community getting together and utilizing their resources to rehab a building and make it available for these kind of events. I mean, they've really done a great job with that.
Yeah, they have.
They have a lot of good events there. They had a seed swap last month.
Yep. And we've had classes over there, too. I was at one of the OSLUs that we did up there, Mike. I think I had 4 or 5 guests that day, so speakers. And
that was, there were 5 that day. That was an extra long class.
Yeah, but, man, we covered just a whole, plethora of topics. I mean, everything from steam engines to how to make your own alcohol as a fuel to seeds and heirloom seeds and all about that. And, I mean, we just that was a great day.
Yes. We'll be having another event I'll tell you about later that will have some of those speakers back again in Koshkonong in April.
Oh, good.
And hopefully you'll be speaking then, too.
I'll be more than happy to do that. Great. So, well, thank you very much. So, folks, today it's 1 o'clock at the Ferguson Building, and 264 is the phone number to call for more information. 264
2435.
2435. Thank you. I'm sorry, my brain is fried this morning.
Take care.
So, all right, have yourself a great day. Hello, caller. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes.
Caucasian man from Arkansas.
There he is.
I don't know how to undo it either. Kind of like you.
Yeah.
Hey, regarding that Olio thing, I think that mock-up you done of that bureaucrat earlier, or was he a prosecutor? I'd say that's his problem. He's eating too much Oleo and not enough butter.
Well, you do have veins in your brain, and when they get clogged, it stops oxygen from getting to the gray matter. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's just the opposite on the lesbians. They eat too much butter and not enough Oleo. But anyway, brandishing a weapon, that's part of, I think in Missouri, that's part of the unlawful use of a weapon, isn't it?
Yes, but, I had a caller who called up on the break, and he didn't want to come on the air, but he made a very good point. You realize that brandishing means to show, right? So that means that when you show up at your front door because someone's pounding on your door at midnight and you don't know who the heck they are, and you show up with a shotgun in your hand, you've just brandished it.
Well,
and his point was this. John Lott, and for those of you who don't know who John Lott is, he's a famous author who's done more studies about firearms and their repercussions or activity in the United States than anyone else. And he's pretty much, by the way, accepted by both sides of the political or ideological fence. His argument is that brandished firearms eliminate more crime. I mean, we're talking about, we do know that the use of a firearm has prevented somewhere around 2.5 million crimes a year, right? And when you talk about the use of the firearm, that's not necessarily, well, I don't know whether he includes brandishing in that or not, but my point is simply this. His argument is real simple. You brandish a firearm, it eliminates the threat, because whoever sees it says, okay, I'm going to go look for an easier target. And if that's the case, then how is it that you can say, for the purposes of this section, the term crime of violence means an offense that is a felony and has an element of use, attempted use, or threatened use of physical force against the person or property of another, or by its nature involves a substantial risk that physical force against the person or property of another may be used in the course of committing the offense. And they determine that physical or crime of violence includes brandishing. And brandish means, with respect to a firearm, to display all or part of the firearm, or otherwise make the presence of the firearm known to another person in order to intimidate that person, regardless of whether the firearm is directly visible to that person. How conflated is that?
Well,
oh my goodness.
Your uniformed law enforcement personnel brandish firearms openly
for a reason
all the time, and for good reason.
Right. The object is to make people know that they're armed and they're there to protect the community. But my point is this. The term brandish means to display all or part of the firearm. So that means that, you're walking down the street and 4 guys cross the street to come onto your side of the street, and you open up your jacket to let them see that there's a pistol there. You just brandished.
Well, the maximum law that applies here is lawful notice or constructive notice of sorts to stop further criminal activity, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a crime at all. It's just another way of getting another BS gun charge,
Exactly. And that's the deal. It's the theory of if we stick enough sticks on this camel, it's going to collapse.
You was talking about the statutes being used subjectively. You never hear officers refer on the radio to the sovereign or the object of the investigation or a citizen. It's always the subject, just like back under the king.
Mm-hmm. And that's true. They call us subjects. So.
And, what kind of a society would put a convicted felon out here defenseless? I mean, that's cruel and unusual punishment. And another thing, if you want to raise a big garden, what do you do about varmints, I mean, they can clean you out in a hurry.
Yeah, you can't be a farmer anymore because the coyotes are allowed to eat your cows.
Wait a minute, 2-legged or 4-legged varmints?
Both. Hey, thank you very much.
You bet. We'll catch you later. Bye.
All right, buddy. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show. You got to.
Yes, I would like to ask a question. What is my friend from Washington State? Okay, he have his father's gun. He passed away when he was 82. You know.
Yeah.
And
you're gonna have to make your point very quickly. We're down to seconds.
Okay, the son is okay. He have the gun in the car, and he have a little weed, whatever. And they arrest him. They took the gun away in the Washington State, and then they put it like a felon. And he's a wonderful person. He never done no criminal ever in his life, and it just don't have no sense, you know.
I mean, and we're not talking about common sense anymore. Now we're talking about stuff that is basically just, abuse by government at this point. Folks, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back after that, and we're going to try to wrap our show. This is our last 15 minutes. We'll be back in just a minute, and I will talk about this lady in New Jersey who just lost her gun rights.
I know what you're thinking, Bunk. You're thinking, did he fire 6 shots or only 5?
Dirty Harry gets all his ammo from the battery station. John Rambo, you guessed it. He gets his ammo from the battery station, too. So if you need ammo, go to the place where the guys who know about ammunition go, the battery station. They have one of the largest supplies of ammunition in the area. So make sure you're stocked up and don't get low on shells. Go to the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains.
Hi, this is Sheila Murphy, store manager at Big Lots. We're located in the Southern Hill Shopping Center in West Plains, Missouri. Southern Hills is home to the best shopping establishment in South Central Missouri. Come visit some of your favorite department stores, and if a full day of shopping is on your list, there are also plenty of great places to eat when you get hungry, and they're all within walking distance. Southern Hills is the largest shopping center in the area and has everything you will be looking for. No need to leave West Plains. Stay local and shop local with Southern Hills Shopping Center. Proud to serve West Plains and the surrounding communities.
Having difficulty with your computer? Do you think it has a mind of its own? Well, don't be alarmed. This happens to everyone at some point in time. Worry no more. Computer Dave and Kyle can help you out with PC Geeks, a weekly show right here on 107.1 The Point. Tune in Thursdays at 1 o'clock to ask computer-related questions and listen to the web topic of the week. That's PC Geeks here on 107.1 The Point.
I had this illness that really made me powerless over alcohol, and that insisted that I got drunk. And so I got drunk. It doesn't have anything to do with trying to control it. An alcoholic who picks up the first drink will pick up the second drink. I can't say to anyone, no, don't drink. But I can say that when you decide you don't want to drink, come to AA. The door to AA is always open. Alcoholics Anonymous. It works. Look us up. Check your phone book, newspaper, or AA.org.
All right, we're back. We're going to wrap the show. I want to just talk about this one story that's kind of pertinent to our discussion here this morning. A New Jersey woman was arrested for reciting the Constitution at a tax meeting. This is exactly what we were talking about earlier. This woman lived in Clayton, New Jersey, and she went to a meeting where the tax assessor was having a discussion about property reevaluation program. And basically what they did is they passed a law that says that in order for the reevaluation to take place, a person from the tax office had to go into your home and look at it. I mean, it wasn't optional. It was mandatory. And she refused to allow the tax assessor onto the property or inside the house to look at what she had in there. And what they did is, as a punishment, they charged her the highest assessable rate under the assumption that, well, you must be guilty if you won't let us look. And so she went into this county tax assessor's hearing and said, the heck with that, that's not appropriate, and you violated you gave me a choice. You could violate my Fourth Amendment rights by forcing me to let you into the home, or you're going to penalize me for not allowing you to violate my Fourth Amendment rights.
And what happened to due process?
Well, there is no such thing called due process anymore. Now we live in a police state called the United States of America with a K. So residents have complained the assessment program violates the Fourth Amendment. In order to make reevaluation assessments and determine the tax value of a property, company inspectors must, it's not even the government, by the way, it's a company they hire, must enter homes and inspect them. If not allowed to do so, the company assesses higher value on homes, leading to increased taxes. She did not allow the assessment and appraisal systems company to inspect her house because her husband wasn't present at the time. Hey, that's something I would tell my wife not to do. Right? Some strange guy comes to the door, says, I got to come into your house. I'd be like, yeah, right. She also cited religious reasons. Because it was denied access, the company reevaluated her property at a higher rate. She attended the meeting last weekend to complain about the reevaluation and the arbitrary move by the county to assess the value of her property. After she began reciting the Constitution to support her argument, an appraisal systems employee escorted her from the public building. I didn't scream. I didn't yell, she said to the newspaper called The Examiner. I have the right to air my grievances against my government in a public setting. I've never threatened anyone a day in my life. So she also wouldn't let me speak, and told me to sit down and shut up and listen as well. That's when the young man came towards me. I knew he was going to put his hands on me, and I saw him out of the corner of my eye, and I said, don't you dare touch me. Then they threw us out of the auditorium. The young man from Appraisal Systems, Inc. was the one going postal, and I believe if he had a gun, he would have shot me and my family on the spot. I was calm the entire time. The spokesperson for Gloucester County said the assessor had never experienced this type of extreme behavior from a taxpayer. Hey, wait a minute. If you're going to raise my taxes based on the fact that you think I might have stuff in my home that gives you the right to tax me more money, I'm going to be mad as hell and not take it anymore either.
Yeah, but the First Amendment...
Wait, here's where it gets better. Although Hart exercised her Fourth Amendment right by not allowing an inspection by government without a court-issued warrant, it did manage to violate her Second Amendment right, because after that, the police arrested her, and they demanded that she turn over her two guns, a .357 caliber Smith and a .40 caliber Glock for safekeeping, quote unquote. If she had refused, the judge would have set bail too high for her family to pay.
This is outrageous.
I have permits for each of them. I applied for them legally, she says. I got them legally. By the way, in New Jersey, to get a gun, you got to have a permit for a pistol. I got them legally, and I applied legally. Now I can't defend myself. I never said the word gun at the meeting, and none of these people would have even known I was a gun owner.
What's the outrageous behavior? You're exercising your First Amendment rights? I don't understand.
Right, exactly.
I don't understand.
To complain about their violation of your Fourth Amendment right.
And
so you exercise the First Amendment to point out that they violated your Fourth Amendment and your Fifth Amendment, by the way, because you can't be compelled to testify against yourself, right?
And what's the authority of a company employee to remove you from a public building that your tax money paid for?
I'm telling you, this is an outrageous story, and this just goes to show you, folks, that we live in a police state. I've said it to you many times. I know people say to me, "Oh, you can't be talking like that." You know what? The hell I can't. We live in a police state. The only difference is that you just don't know it yet because Communist News Network and MSLSD and faux news haven't told you. That's the only difference. The simple truth is we live in a police state. And if you get in the way, then, like I said, the Dick Cheneys of the world just step on the anthill, and they don't really care how much collateral damage occurs. So, all right, I'm going to wrap this show before we go to talk about this reloading class that's on the 30th. You have until March 30th. I'm sorry, you don't have until March 30th. The class occurs on March 30th, which means we need to hear from you if you intend to take this reloading class. It's an all-day class. It's 8 hours. And it's $100, and you will be taught by a certified reloading specialist how to reload metallic cartridges. After a story like this, everybody should be lining up in droves. If you know how to reload, that's fine. If you don't and you would like to learn, this is the class for you. Even if you think you know how to reload, you probably would get some good information and knowledge out of a group of instructors, and it's not a instructor, it's a group of them who have, are certified reloading instructors, because, people do stupid stuff. Anyway, this class is $100. It's going to be held here in West Plains, and we have a few seats left open. We are going to limit it because we don't want too many people per instructor. And so if you're interested in this reloading class, I need to hear from you. You can send me email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. And if you want to take this, it's on the 30th. It's an all-day event, and it'll be held here in West Plains. it's a good class for you to participate in. Also on the 23rd, we have our TAC 1 pistol course. And basically what this is a 2-day event. And there is a women's only group, and then there's a men's only group, and then a men and women combined. And so if you're, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it's a men's only group. Men and women can train in one program, and women can train solo just with other women in the other. So if you are a guy who would like to come and you want to, and your wife wants to come, but she doesn't really want to be around a bunch of testosterone-filled men, she can take into the women's only version. You can use the 22. It's 2 days. It's the 23rd and the 24th of this month, so it's next weekend. And this is a class you should not pass up. You will learn an extraordinary amount of information, including everything that you need to know about how to grip, how to stand, how to present a weapon, how to draw it, how to be watchful for situational awareness around you, what you should do and how you should shoot in the event that you get into a situation like that, the differences between a tactical reload and a speed reload, and there is a big difference, the differences between cover and concealment and how you use both, how to clear out a corner, how to clear out a house, how to get around a corner without getting your brains blown out by some knuckle-dragging meth head in your house. There's just a ton of information for you to learn.
Will they teach me how to brandish a firearm?
They will teach you how to brandish a firearm. I promise you that. And in addition to that, here's the kicker. This is normally a $225 class. For our listeners, it's knocked down to $175 for both days.
Sweet.
I mean, you can't beat that with a lead pipe. And the other part is you can bring a 22. So I know ammunition is expensive. So if you just want to bring your 22 and use that, or if you've got a 45 or a Glock or something like that and you got a slide that'll take a 22, hey, man, go for it. You can use a 22 and just keep your cost down, because a 22, 800 rounds is what you need, right? And 800 rounds in 22 will cost you about $60 or $80. 800 rounds in 9mm will cost you around $400 or $500. Ooh. So, the opportunity is there for you to take this class. It is going to also be held here in West Plains, and it's held by 4 guys that I know are very, very, they're trainers for a long way back. And so it's a great course for you to take. I have taken, over the years, I've taken many, many, many of these courses, and I'm going to tell you, you learn something from every one that you take. I really encourage couples to take it together. And you don't have to be husband and wife. You and a buddy want to take it, or maybe 2 girls want to take it together and they want to work with the ladies only. That's fine. I think husband and wife, a son and mother, a daughter and father. Listen, this is a great chance for. And here's the beautiful part about doing this as a couple. When you practice what you've learned, and you're at the range a week later and there's no instructor there, you get to check each other for, hey, wait a second, he told you to stand with your feet a little wider, or you're not leaning the right way, or you didn't make sure that you cleared the pistol properly, or whatever the case may be. Because here's the beautiful part: everybody learns differently, and 2 people will walk away from the same class with 2 completely different views of what they learned, and what you missed, that other person will be able to remind you of, and so forth, and vice versa. So I strongly encourage people to take it together, because then when you practice later on together, you actually have a way to correct each other of making mistakes if you're going to. And in addition to that, it gives you, kind of like an opportunity to bond with that partner so that you guys go out and train together. And it's just a good opportunity for 2 people to take it together. I strongly encourage that if there's a way that you can do that. The cost of the class is $175. If you're intending to take it, I need to hear from you immediately, and you can get to me via email at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Time is running out on this class, so I need a head count real quick. And please make sure that when you send me an email, put reloading or TAC 1 or pistol course or something in the subject line so I know what it's about, because I get hundreds of emails every day, and sorting through them is a nightmare unless you tell me what you want to talk about. So reloading or TAC 1, make sure you incorporate that into the body of the email, and make sure you give me your phone number. Don't make me communicate with you through email now. Okay. We're wrapping up our show. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans, and I have been your host for these 3 hours. Thank you very, very much for participating with us. You can find us on the web and everywhere else.
Let's get to the point.
Well, let me get to the point.
FM News Talk for the Ozarks is FM 107.1 The Point. KBMV, Birch Tree.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster.